Has the United States become a time bomb that threatens the stability of the South China Sea? In today's video, we'll be going over America's role in the tension boiling between the Philippines and China, the effect of the upgraded EDCA, and then how the neighboring countries are caught in the crossfire. So before we get into it, don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss any of our content. The United States is not close to the South China Sea. It's thousands of kilometers away, but it has become a major source of problems in the South China Sea. From China's perspective, it makes sense. The Philippines' decision to host more US military forces is seen as a provocation, especially about Taiwan. A Chinese South China Sea expert, Hu Bo, called it a 100% provocation toward China. This decision marks a major change from when President Marcos Jr. was on good terms with China. After that, China's relationship with the Philippines started to worsen quickly. When Marcos Jr. started as the leader, he promised a foreign policy of being friends with everyone. His policy was all about not making enemies. That was seen even in January 2023 during his visit to China. During that visit, he said that the Philippines' relationship with China was great and that he wanted to make it even better. He also talked about solving problems in the South China Sea through friendly talks. All was great until just a month later, when things took a sudden turn. He called the Chinese ambassador to Manila and said he was really worried about China's actions. But that wasn't even half of it. He then decided to add new EDCA sites that face China, saying it's important for defending the Philippines. Where does this decision put the Philippines? The country has now effectively become a part of the competition between the US and China. This makes it easier for the US to bring its military into the region. The US has said that having alliances with China's nearby countries is important to stop China, or even win a war against China. So, is this decision by Marcos Jr.'s administration seen as a provocation by Beijing? Well, updating EDCA makes Chinese leaders think that the US is trying to circle and control China worldwide. The US and the Philippines say they want to make their alliance stronger, to be better at stopping things. But is that the whole truth? And it doesn't help how some big US news websites have written opinion pieces about what the US can do to get ready for a fight with China. Even John Bolton, who used to work as a top security advisor for the US, had a lot to say on the matter. He believes that the US should make security groups like the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue and the Australia-United Kingdom-US Trilateral Arrangement stronger. This would encourage more Asian countries to join a new group like NATO in Asia. Whether they wanted to or not, the Philippines has joined America in getting ready to protect Taiwan. After all, US President Joe Biden has talked many times about protecting Taiwan if China attacks it. And it goes without saying that China is taking these words very seriously. If stuff like this is right up your alley, check out our channel for more updates. There's something interesting about the military sites the Philippines has let the US use. 3 of the 4 are near Taiwan. In fact, it's pretty close. The Chinese ambassador in Manila has said the new EDCA sites are almost a stone's throw away from Taiwan. There might be some exaggeration there, but the point still stands. Beijing has good reasons to believe that if there's a crisis in the Taiwan Strait, these Philippine military bases would help the US attack China. After all, the new bases could give important support to US troops. Manila says the new EDCA sites are for defense and disaster relief, but Beijing isn't likely to be reassured by this. When China thinks its One China principle is violated, it reacts quickly and strongly. Who can forget when China downgraded its diplomatic relations with Lithuania? That was all because it allowed the opening of a diplomatic office in the name of Taiwan in 2021. That was a bold move, and Lithuania definitely suffered the effects of it. At the time, Manila was seemingly picking a side. France was doing the same. France is a major NATO ally of the US, and the country was careful not to get involved in a potential conflict in the Taiwan Strait. Manila is right at the end of that spectrum, though. Even though President Marcos Jr. says the new EDCA sites aren't for offensive attacks, Beijing believes otherwise. Not to mention the change in their relationship puts other regional states in an awkward spot. They can't also be seen aligning with the United States. So, to make sure their intentions are crystal clear, leaders from Malaysia and Singapore tried to make their stance clear. They had productive visits to Beijing in early April 2023. It's safe to say that most ASEAN countries want peace and stability in the region. They're trying to ease tensions between China and the US, and Manila's actions are worrying for regional stability. So, what does America think of these developments? Take it from Carl Thomas, the commander of the US Navy's 7th Fleet. He criticized China's actions in the South China Sea, specifically mentioning one incident. This was the interception of Philippine ships by Chinese Coast Guard vessels near Renai Reef on August 5th. If you look back at the history of the conflict, a lot of things become clear. It helps us understand why Washington is so concerned about a dispute over a far-off area. It also underscores what could be lost if China pushes the United States to abandon these long-standing interests. Given China's actions in militarizing and exerting pressure in the region, this possibility is now real. One of the oldest US interests in the contested South China Sea is the principle of open seas and maritime law. American leaders have viewed safeguarding the freedom of the seas as important for national prosperity and security for over 2 centuries. Few interests have remained as steadfast throughout the American history. And let's not forget about another US interest in the South China Sea. Especially since World War II, maintaining defense without getting involved has been a big policy. In disputes over territorial sovereignty among US allies, America has been a pillar of stability. The country helps the deployment of military forces thousands of miles from home, acting as a deterrent to aggression. So if a security crisis happens, the US is right there. This, in turn, safeguards its allies, protecting their mutual interests. Plus, the United States has made its stance clear. The US-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty extends to any attack on Philippine forces in the South China Sea. This commitment is carefully balanced with a long-standing neutrality on territorial disputes. Although there have been tense moments on both sides, all hope is not lost. Washington repeatedly recognizes the immense value of its longest-standing Asian alliance, and Manila reaches the same conclusion. Enjoying this video so far? Smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe. It's clear that America is a major factor behind the current tensions in the South China Sea, and its provocative actions are risky. After all, the resolution of the dispute is not entirely Washington's concern, because if the US meddles in China's core interests in the South China Sea, it'll face a direct response. China's position on territorial matters is well known and hasn't changed. We won't give up what belongs to us, and we have no interest in territory that isn't ours. And what it looks like is that the US is trying to rally neighboring countries and create tensions in the region. Even if that's not true, this will only increase instability in the area. It'll all come to a head soon, but where will the neighboring regions end up? As China and ASEAN are in critical talks about a code of conduct in the South China Sea, the US is stuck in the middle. All this is delaying the process. It goes against everything the South Asian countries have been trying for. After all, the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea sets some basic directions for resolving the South China Sea issue. To resolve the issue, all involved parties must improve communication and work towards adopting the COC as soon as possible. This approach allows disputes to be handled reasonably and fairly, without external interference. Given the complexity of the matter, China has consistently advocated setting aside disputes. This approach remains the most realistic and aligned with the interests of all parties. For decades, ASEAN has experienced rapid economic growth and prosperity, largely due to regional peace. This trend would come to an abrupt halt if the South China Sea became an unstable region. While China actively seeks peaceful development, there might be some disagreements with the US. What are your thoughts about this? Let us know in the comments.